Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and I really am delighted to be joined by Kevin McCluskey and John Hughes for the Celtic versus Motherwell match. John, the team lineup has been announced. No massive surprises, really, is there?
No surprises, and it's exactly the team that you would have wanted, really. That said, and I'm sure we'll get to it, got the bench is starting to look a bit shaky again. I'm looking at that bench, and you're not really seeing, unless Moy has found his shooting boots again, you're not really seeing any game changers coming on there. So, yeah, I mean, the first team I'm perfectly happy with, and let's just hope they can get the job done without relying on the bench too much.
I think it's a very good point, that, John, because we were talking last week about the injuries to players like Jota at the time, Carter Vickers. We'll come back to that and the frosty reception that the journalist got for asking the question. Abada, of course, and Hatate. But, if you've got the three boys missing, Kevin, very, very big players for Celtic. As John says, you're looking at that bench and on the one hand, you're saying, yeah, brilliant to see Summers and Vata in there. But in terms of game changers, it's not as full of them as we're used to, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's one of been like a key feature of these pre-match shows beforehand when you're asking, how do you think the game's going to go? And you'll say, well, if we don't get it won in the first 60 minutes, we'll just turn to the bench and we'll bring on Abada. We'll bring on Haksabanovic, but he's starting today. Mm-hmm. So it does look a little bit kind of threadbare, as John was saying, but we are without Jota, Forrest, Abada, Hatate.
Yeah.
So that's four key players. Any team that loses four of their kind of regular starting 11 is going to look threadbare when it goes down to this stage. So, yeah, it is. It's unusual now to look at that bench and not be full of confidence that there's players that can come on and change the game. But you still got to look at the first 11 and think they're good enough to win the game in the first hour or 70 minutes. And you know what? See if they're not, what an opportunity it is for somebody like Rocco Vata or Ben Summers to come on at Celtic Park in front of 50, 60,000 fans and make a name for themselves and get us over the line.
Yeah, rather than a 10 or 15-minute cameo where the game's already put to bed. I like that. I mean, obviously on his game, John, Moy, Turnbull, and could come on. They could make a difference, but we are used to having a wee bit more depth on that bench. So I totally agree with that. We were talking about the loan players we've got out at the moment, 12 loan players, the accumulation of wages, all that kind of stuff. Maybe 2 or 3 of them will come back to Celtic, but with the rest of them, John, I'd much rather we brought in 3 or 4 players who do contribute, because we've got 12 guys out there all over the globe who are not contributing to Celtic right now.
Yeah, well, going back to your original point there, regards I think O has been getting an easy ride from the fans, actually, because we all want to see him succeed, and because we all know how keen the manager is on him. So, we're basically, this isn't really about O, it's about Ange. So we're not wanting to say, no, this is one that's, it's not working out or whatever. I mean, there's no evidence it's not working out yet. There's no evidence it is working out, as a matter of fact. That's the point. So he's shown a couple of good flashes. He has looked strong in certain areas. But, we really need him. Put it this way, if we weren't 12 points ahead, and probably 15 points by tomorrow once Aberdeen do us a favour. But if we weren't 12 points ahead, and Kyogo was injured, you wouldn't be, you wouldn't be overly confident about our prowess in front of goal. Kyogo, there is a big gap between Kyogo and O at the moment. Now, hopefully that changes, and we can all see the boy's got potential. Potential doesn't have it's not a guarantee it's going to work out, but the boy obviously has potential, and Ange loves him. So the fans haven't been getting on his back. Nobody's been giving him a hard time. So that's a good thing. But we need him to settle in. And we need him to start producing. We need him to start becoming a threat to Kyogo's place. And he's definitely not that at the moment.
Well, the honeymoon period doesn't last too long, Kevin. And that's, for me, that's a good thing, because, I mean, we were talking about where do we strengthen in the summer. and there was a kind of a view whereby it was, you know what, if we've got Kyogo, no, that's enough, because you've also got Maeda and Abada. But you look at the situation we're in at this moment in time today, and you go into this game, well, Abada's injured. If anything, and touching every bit of wood I can put my eyes on, was to happen to someone like Kyogo, then you've got a problem, because you're relying on one player to fit in, and it's got to work. So I think it does strengthen the view that we do need another striker in the summer.
Oh, we definitely do. Yeah, it's. I think it's one of the areas that, again, we speak about quite a lot. It's been one that we really do need to bring in an extra body in over the summer. For that very reason, I'm looking at the team and looking at the bench with the view of we are 12, almost 15 points clear. It almost doesn't matter what the bench is like just now. We should be good enough to get through games. But the point that John makes, if this is the start of next season, for example, or if this was last season and you're going into this run of games and it's really tight and Kyogo breaks down like he did against St Johnstone last season, O's the man that's coming in and there's no one behind him. It's the young boy Dawson, probably, who's next in line. And I haven't seen enough of him to know if he's ready. So we definitely do need to go out in the summer and bring someone in up front. There are other options that we've got. You can kind of square peg Haksabanovic or Maeda in there at the moment. But in terms of a natural replacement successor, we don't have it. No. And we'll need that because Kyogo's 28 years old or 29 years old. So we're only going to get another 2, maximum 3 seasons out of him. But I'm going to suggest
I've already said 14 seasons. He's going to do a Nakamura, Kev, right?
You think he's going to do Kazimura, the boy that's playing until he's 50?
Why not? Why not? Right?
Why not? Right. So,
yeah,
so we've got him for
I'm not sure he's hamstrings.
We've got him for the next 20 years. We don't need anyone else.
Don't tell me about hamstrings, John. I lasted 10 minutes on a treadmill today, and I was pulling up like an old man. And I think the signs are there. The signs are there. Sorry, John. We butted in there. You were going to make a point.
No, it was just that was a strange thing. When I ran a poll to see where people thought that we would need to strengthen. So it was goalkeeper, defence, midfield, attack. So obviously midfield got the fewest number of votes, and then defence. But bizarrely, the goalkeeper was the top position that people thought we needed to strengthen. I think it got like 51% of the votes or whatever. And I was really surprised by that. I mean, I thought it was clearly an attack that we need to strengthen.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper, we've got Joe Hart. He's not the best goalkeeper in the world, but he's not terrible. He's pretty decent when he's not having a mare. So but I mean, you've got Siegrist behind him. He's not that, he looks like a decent player if we ever get to see him. But I just didn't see how you couldn't answer the striking positions for that one, because as you've just pointed out, Kev, we've got Kyogo, an unproven potential talent, and then who? We saw how quickly it can all go. And Kyogo's, thank God his hamstrings have held out this year, but I mean, and he got the operation so it's much less likely that it'll happen again because he got the operation rather than just hoping for the best. But it's very, very easy for a guy like him to get injured, with the pace that he's got and the trickery that he has, and, some big lump at the back, putting the boot into him, or going through him, or, or tripping him, or whatever it is. Very, very easy to lose him. And then, I mean, again, as I say, I'm not trying to give a hard time at all. It's not getting to do with that. It's just that, for instance, if this was the start of the season, you'd have been confident that Gigi would come on and at least add goals. They'd been far more confident that Big Giacomakis would have actually scored. So at least I would have been. Again, it's got nothing to do with the boy. He needs time to bed in, and obviously the manager loves him. So I'm not trying to second guess Ange, but again, nobody gets them all right at the end of the day. So let's just hope he beds in and starts producing.
Yeah, and you're right. You're right to point it out, John, because it is a situation where you're one hamstring away from not courting disaster, but then you're starting to think to yourself, do you play someone out of position? Do you play who is as yet unproven in a Celtic jersey? I'm really keen to get some thoughts from the commenters, the audience, which is about 500 strong, just over. You and Boy Martin, right. Hail, hail from a beautiful and sunny Isle of Mull. And I know for a fact that not only are you on the Isle of Mull, but you're at the Mull Musical Festival, Ewan, and you're there to celebrate the 50th birthday of your wee brother. I'm not giving your age away. Your wee brother Callum, who I've had the pleasure of meeting on one occasion, and he's a phenomenal guitarist. So hopefully you and your brother have a great day at the Mull Music Festival, and hopefully Celtic can get a result for the Perries as well. Nice one, Ewan. So
it's definitely not sunny in Newry, I can tell you that. It's absolutely lashing down here.
Is it?
Absolutely lashing down, which means, Paul John, that I would have got away with not cutting the grass anyway. So, I didn't even need to volunteer to come on.
Whenever you need to get out of any domestic chores, John, we are here for you, right? For anyone who's not seen the team, let's have a wee look at that then. We'll run through the team. Tobago Street Police Station, Celtic Supporters Club. You've still not told me. How many members have you got in that CSC? Awata, McGregor and O'Reilly, welcome to the future with a question mark. Well, that's something we're going to be talking about. Let's have a look at the team then. So we've got Joe Hart, Johnson, Carter Vickers and Starfelt, Taylor, McGregor, Awata, O'Reilly, Haksabanovic, Maeda and Kyogo. And as we said on the bench, we've got Bain, Moy, Turnbull, Kobayashi, O, Bernabe, Summers, Ralston and Vata. Now, when you look at that team, I'm going to pull out Carter Vickers first because he was obviously part of many discussions leading up to this game about this injury that apparently, I'm now using the word apparently, was being managed by Celtic. Kevin McCluskey, Andrew was asked about it in the presser, and whoever asked him the question got what could best be described as a frosty answer. What did you make of that?
To be honest, I haven't seen his press conference, so I don't know exactly what the answer was. But I'm guessing it wasn't the same smiley mate that our Colin got the week before.
No, there was no discussions about nobody sitting with him in the canteen. Basically, the crux of it was that whatever the information is that's came out about Carter Vickers, and certainly wasn't confirming it, put it that way. He wasn't confirming that the club are managing an injury. If, for example, that information came out of the club and it wasn't meant to, maybe that's what's annoyed him. Because remember, the information about Greg Taylor didn't come out from the club, and Ange wouldn't have been happy with that. It came out from Stevie Clark. So I understand why he would be a wee bit nipped, but at the same time, if I'm in that press conference, I think it's a legitimate question.
I think it is. I think people want to know what's going on with the players, want to know, Carter Vickers missed last week. Tell me exactly the reason why. Kind of put everybody's mind at ease. Is he an injury doubt? Was it just a precaution because of the surface? Did you just want to give Kobayashi a game to see how he got on? As fans, I think we want to know the answer to that. But yeah, if you're Ange, you probably don't want to let too much away because we've still got big games to prepare for. If Carter Vickers is an injury doubt or there is a wee niggle there, you don't want it to be public knowledge because that's something that your opposition's just going to pick up and play on. So, yeah, you can see it from both points of view. Like, we want to know, but he doesn't want to tell.
Right. Would your follow-up question, though, be, Kev, well, is Jota injured as well?
Absolutely.
Would you have had the chutzpah to actually ask that question?
You'd have to, because you're in a hiding to nothing anyway. Nothing else to lose. Just go for it.
You can't throw in that second question that Colin threw in and get a wee smile off him. You just go for it.
Exactly. You just go for it. If you're in that hole already, just dig a wee bit deeper. Tell me, when exactly is Hatate back? What's the baddest situation?
Yeah.
Is his agent speaking to Benfica? I want to know.
and where's James McCarthy all of a sudden? So John, we were a wee bit concerned, obviously, during the week about Carter Vickers. However, if you were to look back at the international break where Stevie Clark mentioned that there was an issue with Greg Taylor, remember, Carter Vickers was left out the America squad as well at that time, remember? So it could be that him and Taylor are in a kind of similar boat.
I think it's a very, very poorly kept secret that they are nursing an injury through here. And obviously, he doesn't want to mention the extent of it because, very obviously, if you're saying he's got a dodgy right knee and, is he going to be able to turn on that? What weakness does that expose when you're attacking him? Is he going to be able to chase balls over the top? But, he's obviously fit enough to play, but, I saw people complaining actually that was the first time that they thought the manager had snapped at someone with a legitimate question, because usually it's the same old nonsense. But they felt that this was actually a legitimate question, and the journalist was right to ask it. It was just doing his job. So it wasn't the usual rubbish. But, you can see why the manager's annoyed because, again, he obviously doesn't want that information to be out there. And he'll be irritated that it is because it certainly hasn't come through the club. And, essentially what he said was, he's fit for this game. If he's fit for the next game, we'll play in that game. So it was pretty abrupt. But, it's unfortunate with Carter Vickers because, you don't want him to miss the full close season either. You don't want him to miss the pre-season. So, but it sounds like, if the rumours are true, it sounds like he could be out for a good while, and probably will miss the pre-season. So we'll see. As we spoke about during the week, I'd have been perfectly relaxed with Kobayashi playing. So, I wouldn't have any concerns about that at all. And that includes next week. So, you want your best team out there. But again, the big man didn't have his best game in the last game against them, and you wonder how much of that is psychological because of the injury. And we talk about how important the mental aspect of the game is, and if you are carrying an injury and that it's going to hurt if you go a certain way, or you're not going to be able to get to a ball, or you're second guessing yourself, that's going to hurt your performance. There's no question of that.
No, you're right. And I'm going back to my incident this morning on the treadmill. There was a moment where I had to hop on my left foot until it slowed down a wee bit, Kev. I can see you smiling. You're obviously feeling my pain there. Claff's 1970.
If a treadmill had seen me coming, it had thrown itself out the window.
At least I didn't end up falling. That would be the worst. That absolutely would be the worst. Clarting about the garage. Claff's 1978. Hatate and Jota a worry for next week, but confident in the replacements we have in Ange Trust. Again, though, I go back to some occasions where the team line comes out and they just appear. We've seen it. Remember last year in Europe, McGregor and Kyogo, they come back. There was absolutely no sign that they were going to be coming back, and they started the game. Joe Hamilton, afternoon, and hail troops from finally sunny Austria. So you're getting a wee bit of the sunshine, which is great. And Michael McDonald as well is coming in here. That's nearly my ideal team, apart from Maid on the wing with Jota in the middle. Jota would be a star centre forward, says Michael. Also would like to see Ralston get a wee run out today. Nearly forgot about him. I'll tell you something, right? Tony Ralston, Joe Hamilton echoes that. I want to see the Bricky coming on. Kevin, you think about a player like Tony Ralston. He must be a manager's dream. Low maintenance. He comes in. He's never been dropped due to a bad performance, right? But we've bought two right backs in the time that Ralston's kind of re-emerged as a first-team player. And a lot of players could throw the toys at the pram. Ralston doesn't do that. He must be a dream to manage.
Aye, him and Greg Taylor, I would say, probably must be the two easiest players in that squad to manage. Taylor, because he was willing to be adaptable and change his game to stay at Celtic and become the new type of left-back, the inverted full-back. And Ralston, because this is home for Ralston. He doesn't want to be anywhere else. He's a Celtic man. He's happy to be here. He gets the club. He gets everything about it. And I think he's one of those players that really fits in with the group of players that Ange has brought in. Because we always talk about the mentality of his signings, and Johnston being a right back being probably the most recent example of it. Someone that comes in, is confident in his own abilities, knows what he can't do, knows his limitations, but has the belief that he can go out in the park and do the job and be a team player. And Ralston had that already. He's like the perfect Ange player, mentality-wise. And like you say, for the last 2 seasons, he hasn't put a foot wrong whenever he's played. He's always come in, he's been solid and been reliable. He's just one of those guys that you kind of feel a bit sorry for, that he's not a special player in any way, and he'll probably always be replaced and always be the backup, but he's a fantastic backup to have.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And John, you need players like that in a squad, but also the fact he is one of these guys who is, part of the quota for homegrown players as well, John. So I can see Ralston sticking around, even if he only plays 20, 25 games a season.
Well, the two Tonys on the right, isn't it? The two Tonys sounds like a Sopranos spin-off. But basically, yeah. Well, I tell you another thing as well. Johnson, for all the fact he's been playing well and great reviews, he's not been flawless. He's made a few mistakes recently.
Yeah.
He's been responsible for a couple of goals, actually directly responsible for a couple of goals, losing his man. So Tony Ralston might well be due a shout. But the problem with what you're saying there, Kev, is, and I know what you mean generically about he's coming in and he's not, he's not let us down. He did the last time though, because when he came in, he looked like he hadn't played for months. You know what I mean?
That's true.
The
game against Hart.
And he was sort of...
Yeah, he did. He looked off the pace in that one.
Yeah, he couldn't trap a bag of cement, basically. So, he was... and that was, to me, was a worry, because I feel he deserves a game. Johnson's a better player than him, for sure at the moment. But, Tony's not that far behind. And he wasn't far... I was a big supporter of Tony's when Juranovic was here, because I felt Juranovic was weak in certain areas, and I felt Tony was great going forward. And he still has that, he's very, very dangerous going forward now. Admittedly, Johnson's been very good in that area as well. So, I'm not suggesting that Tony gets in front of him, but I still think they should be rotating. But clearly, it's pretty much the only area of the pitch where the manager doesn't want to make any changes, isn't it? He doesn't change the back line at all unless he has to. He seems really fixated on that. And you can understand why, because it's the one area of the pitch where people really need to have good relationships and understand, almost instinctively what to do next when you're under pressure. It's all right to be an Aaron Moyne, lifting up picking your head up and looking for a devastating killer pass. But if someone's bearing down on you in a game where you're under pressure, and you have a split second to think about whether to pass it back to the goalie or, try and get out of trouble yourself, that's a whole different kettle of fish, and you need that sort of almost telepathic understanding. So, I understand the manager's thinking, but it is hard on Tony, because he came on to such a good game and he was playing so well, and then he gets usurped by Juranovic, and then we upgrade from Juranovic we didn't know it was going to be an upgrade, but we upgrade from Juranovic to Johnson, and I can only imagine the despair. When Tony was at training and this boy comes in and starts playing a blinder, he just must have his head in his hands. What have I got to do here? I don't know if he'd switched to the left. There's more chance of usurping Taylor, but unfortunately not. But anyway, I feel bad for Tony. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and we'll be watching Johnson's performance today with interest as well, obviously, on a week before the big game against Rangers as well. Joseph McGonigal, strong team despite no Jota or Hatate, hopefully keeping them for next week. And again, we will see. Interesting that picture, actually, Joseph, that you've got on your avatar, because we haven't really spoken too much about Joe Hart. But I was talking through the week. He turned 36 this week, so he's still very much a young man, Kevin. And Joe Hart, for me, as well as the performances, I think that the man, the leadership, that kind of quality that we have seen on the park, but I'm sure, it's in abundance behind the scenes, at training, in the dressing room, that kind of thing. Ange says that is the domain of the players, and I'm pretty sure that if you're looking at the characters who actually run the dressing room, Joe Hart will be one of them.
Yeah, definitely. That's probably been the thing that's impressed me and surprised me most about Joe Hart since he came, because I think if you'd followed English football, you knew that we were signing a fairly decent keeper, someone who'd be able to hold their own up in Scotland and, does a decent job in Europe. As John said, before, probably not a spectacular goalkeeper, but good enough for our level for playing in Scotland. My major concern was, what's this guy's attitude going to be like? Is he coming up with the kind of Billy Big Balls kind of thing, Is he coming up? I've been there, I've done it. I've won everything in England. I'm the big cheese. But he's not. From his very first interview, he was kind of talking up being at Celtic, saying, look, I'm just happy to be at a club that trusts in me, that wants to play me. And you can see that the trust that we've got in him it really means something to him. It kind of resonates with him, and he's taken it to heart, and he's taken us to heart. And last season, when we were going through the real rebuild of Ange in those first 6 months, every single incident that happened during the game, Joe Hart was the first player that would be out. He'd be running up to the halfway line to have a go at somebody. He was the first one there. If there was a stoppage in play, he was the one going over to Ange to get instructions and then feeding it back to the players. I don't know if you remember that. He's just taken on the whole leadership mantle. And now that he's won a couple of League Cups and a league title, again, you see him in the interviews, and I think it's genuine when he turns and says, just listen to the crowd. Just listen to that. How, as a football player, can you not be motivated to do well for that? And I think, he's not someone, obviously, that gets it in the way that we do, but he understands what it means to be at Celtic. And I think he's one of those guys that definitely will feed that into the new boys as they come in. And I've been, hugely impressed and kind of taken aback by that side of his game.
Well, the concern wasn't it, Paul, that he'd think he was head and shoulders above the rest of the people. Or he'd want too big a pizza the action, sorry, I'm here all week.
By the way, that's all off the cuff, John. That's superb. No, I think that there's some players who have come to Celtic and it's almost like they're at grass. They're like a racehorse that's seen better days, And yeah, I know there was a couple of really decent performances from Roy Keane, and I love Roy Keane as a player. But we didn't see the best of him. And I'm not saying we're seeing the best of Joe, but at least, John, we're getting somebody who is contributing to this success in this era under Ange Postecoglou.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's prone to an occasional mistake and he can't save a penalty, but he's pulled off some phenomenal saves. Let's not forget that. I mean, he's not just contributing in terms of his leadership skills. He has done a hell of a job at some really important times, pulled off some absolute worldy saves, and a couple of them down on his low left side, which apparently he couldn't save anyone. So he's been phenomenal from that point of view. Is he the best we've had? No, I mean, because he's got a couple of weaknesses in his game, but he's a very, very good keeper. He's still a top-class keeper, and if he didn't have, all of these guys usually, if there isn't a wee flaw in their game, they wouldn't be here, from that point of view. So, although I suppose Big Fraser Forster was pretty decent. But Joe's done a phenomenal job. So as well as all the leadership skills, he's been a great keeper. And has he? I think he's maybe cost us 1-2 goals, maybe, and he's saved I don't know how many. I don't know. So he hasn't been in any way anything other than top class. He's been a top class keeper since he got here. So he's not Maradona with the feet like, but other than that, he's a hell of a shot stopper.
Yes, even recently against Hearts. Remember that save against Hearts, low left.
Yeah. That's the one I was thinking about. Yeah.
Sorry, Kev.
So when you're talking about his saves, and to link it back to the very first thing we talked about, the bench today. His save from Morelos at 2-1 in the last Glasgow derby was massive. Because if that goes in, it's kind of point blank range and he's made the save. If that goes in, that could really change that game.
Yeah.
Because they were on the ascendancy at that point. And they're the things that at times in post matches we don't talk about, because it kind of happens in the blink of an eye. He's made the save, we go down the park and score again. And that's what we talk about, our goal. Keepers get overlooked a lot, and Joe Hart's made a few really big saves. So if he doesn't save that and say we don't win the game, then we're not sitting here with a 12, potentially 15-point lead. And your point about looking at the bench and going, do you have the complete confidence in that you did 3 or 4 weeks ago and someone coming off the bench to change the game? Well, you don't, but Joe Hart means it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, you're right. And by the way, I think there is a bit of reshuffling in the summer regarding the goalkeepers, because I've just been having a wee look here. Joe Hart, Vasilis Barkas, Toby Oluwayemi, Conor Hazard, Bernie Siegrist and Scott Bain all at the club at the moment. 6 keepers. We could probably half that. I think Barkas doesn't have a future. Hazard, I don't think, has a future either. So again, that's going to be interesting to see how Ange deals with that. And let's not forget, Joseph bringing this up as well, we'll be remembering Billy McNeil, who passed away sadly in 2019 on this day. So thanks for bringing that up as well. We'll be going to the action in just a few seconds. 600 strong on the live stream. Very quickly, the Motherwell team is Kelly, Johnson, McGinn, Butcher, Casey, Furlong, Goss, Slattery, Payton, Spittle and Van Veen. We know he is the danger man, but Celtic, I think, will have enough to get through this, and we will be back at halftime to discuss the first half. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved in the chat. Give us a big thumbs up if you liked the video. If you want to comment in the comment section at halftime, subscribe to the channel, where you'll be joined by myself, Kevin McCluskey, and John Hughes. Thanks for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Nice one. Cheers.